If you love ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, and everything that goes bump in the night, then mark your calendars for the West Kentucky Paranormal Expo, happening September 26 in Mayfield, Kentucky at the Mayfield Graves County Fairgrounds. This incredible one-day event brings together some of the biggest names in the paranormal community, including Aaron G. Thompson from Netflix's 28 Days Haunted, Jimmy and Jeffrey from Outlaw Paranormal, The Wind of Rose, Josh Morris, Michael Huntington, Rachel Ravensville, and many, many more special guests and speakers. Your admission is just $15, and that gets you an all-day come-and-go wristband so you can explore at your own pace. Browse more than 35 vendors, enjoy delicious food trucks, attend speaker presentations and panels, meet investigators, hear incredible stories, and dive into the worlds of hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and the unexplained. Whether you're a seasoned ghost hunter or just curious about the mysteries that surround us, there's something for everyone at the West Kentucky Paranormal Expo. Tickets are on sale now. For more information, visit West Kentucky Paranormal Expo on Facebook and get ready for one of the most exciting paranormal events of the year. We'll see you in Mayfield on September 26th. Welcome back to Southern Ghost Stories. I am the American Haunted Historian, Alan Searcy. So you guys know, I was born and raised in Nashville. I've talked about it several times on the show. Growing up in Middle Tennessee, it was kind of a strange thing, because when I was a kid in the 90s, downtown Nashville, it was in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, downtown Nashville, it wasn't really the booming tourist place like it is today. Broadway, now it's like a sea of honky-tonks, and it's like Las Vegas lights, I tell people. But back in the 80s and 90s, it was peep shows and pawn shops. Broadway was kind of a seedy, dangerous place. So I didn't really go down there a whole lot. I'd sneak off with some buddies, but I kind of stayed away because I knew that's where all the trouble was. But if you think Broadway was bad back in the 80s and 90s, Printer's Alley, that was 100 times worse. So I plan on doing a show today about kind of Printer's Alley and some of the legend and the lore there. So let's just jump right into it, shall we? Today, Printer's Alley is one of Nashville's most famous destinations. Tucked between 3rd and 4th Avenue in the heart of downtown Nashville, the narrow brick-lined passageways, they draw thousands of tourists and locals every single year. On any given weekend, the alley's packed with people moving from bar to bar, listening to live music pouring out of basement clubs, and soaking in the energy of Music City after dark. But Printer's Alley, it wasn't always the trendy entertainment district we know today. Its history stretches back nearly 200 years. In the early 1820s, the alley ran from Dietrich Street all the way to south to Broadway, and as Nashville expanded and new buildings filled downtown, the alley was gradually shortened until it reached its current boundaries between Union Street and Commerce. And according to legend, one of the earliest notable visitors to the alley was none other than future President Andrew Jackson. While practicing law in Nashville, Jackson reportedly boarded his horses in a livery stable owned by his friend Jacob McGavick, who was a future United States Attorney General. And that stable stood near the alley, making the future president a frequent visitor to the area long before it became the trendy place it is today. And the alley earned its nickname decades later. By the late 19th and early 20th century, Nashville's booming publishing industry had transformed the district into a hub for newspapers and printing companies. The offices of the Tennessean and the Nashville Banner were located nearby, along with numerous printers, publishers, and typesetters. During the day, the sound of printing presses echoed through the neighborhood as workers rushed to produce newspapers that would be distributed all across Middle Tennessee. But when the presses stopped rolling, a different side of Printer's Alley emerged. Following World War II, the district became the center of Nashville's nightlife. Bars, clubs, gambling rooms, and burlesque theaters moved into the old buildings. Men who spent their evenings in the business district often found themselves wandering into Printer's Alley looking for some entertainment. And excitement was never in short supply. The alley became Nashville's unofficial, quote-unquote, red light district. Visitors could find gambling, live music, burlesque performances, and enough alcohol to keep the party going until sunrise. One local journalist once joked that a man could enter Printer's Alley with a full paycheck and emerge a few hours later with empty pockets and a story he would never tell his wife. And as you would expect, most of what was happening there in the Printer's Alley was technically illegal. For many years, Nashville maintained strict liquor laws that prohibited bars from selling hard liquor directly to customers. But establishments got around the law through a loophole. Patrons would bring their own bottles, and bartenders would charge a fee to mix the drinks. Everyone knew liquor was being sold behind the scenes, but proving it was happening was another matter. And as a result, the police, they raided the clubs throughout Printer's Alley quite often. Every few months, authorities would sweep through the district, confiscating alcohol and making arrests. But the raids did little to slow business. The nightlife there continued to flourish. Finally, in 1966, the city legalized liquor by the drink, ending decades of legal battles and allowing bars to openly serve whiskey and cocktails. And for a time, Printer's Alley was the undisputed center of Nashville nightlife. And then came the difficult years. Economic downturns during the 70s and 80s hit downtown Nashville pretty hard. Businesses had to close. Buildings deteriorated. Crime increased. Many locals, like me, avoided the area altogether. The alley developed a reputation as a rough, dangerous place where respectable people, they didn't go after dark. Yet even during those difficult years, a handful of businesses, they managed to hang on and survive. One of them was a nightclub located in the basement of the Southern Turf building. And at the center of the nightclub was one of the most colorful characters Nashville ever produced. His name was David Schulman, but nobody called him that. To generations of musicians, tourists, bartenders, and locals, he was known as Skull. His real name was David Schulman, but for nearly half a century, he was the undisputed king of Printer's Alley. Born in North Nashville, David grew up just only a few blocks from Sulphur Dell, the home of Nashville's minor league baseball team at the time, the Nashville Vols. He became a bat boy for the team and spent much of his youth around ball players and sports figures. The nickname Skull came from an automobile accident during his younger years, when he was a kid. David suffered a fractured skull, and the baseball players around the Vols began calling him Skull. The nickname stuck, and eventually it became more famous than his real name. Like many folks during the Depression era, David worked hard for everything he earned. And according to local accounts, he sold newspapers for the Tennessean as a young man and spent years saving money while dreaming of owning a business of his own. And then in 1948, he made his move. Deep beneath the Southern Turf building in Printer's Alley, David Schulman opened a nightclub called Skull's Rainbow Room. The club would become one of the most famous entertainment venues in Tennessee. In the beginning, the Rainbow Room reflected the wild spirit of Printer's Alley. Burlesque dancers performed on stage. Jazz musicians played late into the night. Politicians, businessmen, musicians, and tourists crowded into the basement club. But Skull was always adapting. As Nashville's music scene evolved, so did the Rainbow Room. The club gradually shifted toward live country music, helping create the blueprint for what would eventually become Nashville's honky-tonk culture. Over the years, an astonishing list of future legends performed there. Johnny Cash, Chet Atkins, Waylon Jennings, Hank Williams, and other musicians and artists that weren't really country guys like Boots Randolph, Bob Dylan, and some guy you may have heard of. His name was Elvis Presley. Countless others passed through the Rainbow Room's doors before becoming household names. And stories about Skull became nearly as famous as the club itself. He wore flashy Western jackets created by legendary designer Nudie Conan Manuel. He appeared periodically on Hee Haw. He loved professional wrestling, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. And eventually, he adopted his trademark outfit, faded blue bib overalls. For years, Skull could be found sitting inside his club wearing those same overalls while greeting customers like they were his long-lost old friends. By the 80s and 90s, he wasn't just a club owner. He was a Nashville institution. And yet, for all his fame and notoriety, there was a lot of sadness in Skull's life. During the late 1940s, he got engaged to a woman that he was just head over heels in love with. Friends said he believed that he had finally found the person he would spend the rest of his life with. and then tragedy struck. Shortly before Christmas, 1949, his fiancée died unexpectedly. The loss devastated him. Friends later said he never really recovered. David Schulman never married. Instead, he poured his energy into the Rainbow Room and all the people around him. And he developed an unusual love for poodles. Over the decades, Skull became almost as famous for his dogs as he was for his nightclub. He often walked poodles named Sweetie and Sugar through Printer's Alley on rhinestone leashes. At Christmas, he even dyed their fur red and green. And according to legend, Elvis Presley actually gave him a poodle as a Christmas gift one year. The tourists loved him. Musicians loved him. Locals loved him. Everybody loved Skull. But perhaps the people who appreciated him most were Nashville's homeless population. By the 1990s, Skull had become known for his generosity. He frequently gave struggling people money. He hired people who needed work. He bought meals for those who couldn't afford them. Many homeless people in downtown Nashville knew Skull personally. He never forgot where he came from. And unfortunately, that generosity created a dangerous reputation. People knew Skull carried cash. Lots of cash. And they know exactly where he kept it. In the front bib pocket of those famous overalls. According to later court testimony, one of the men who would eventually participate in his murder had previously worked for Skull, and he knew that Skull carried large amounts of money on his person. That knowledge, it was deadly. January 21st, 1998, it was a cold Nashville morning. Skull was 80 years old. Like every morning before, he had taken his beloved poodles for a walk through Printer's Alley. Nothing seemed unusual. Nothing seemed threatening. The Rainbow Room wasn't even open yet. But sometime that morning, violence erupted inside the club. Investigators later determined that robbery was the motive. And what happened next was savage. When a cigarette vendor entered the Rainbow Room, he discovered a horrifying scene. Skull lay on the floor. His throat had been slashed several times. His head had been smashed with a liquor bottle. Blood was everywhere. And nearby, one of his poodles wandered aimlessly through the club, unable to understand why its owner wasn't getting up. The attack shocked everyone who knew him. And this wasn't a random victim. This was Skull, the man who had spent 50 years entertaining Nashville, the man who had helped countless musicians, the man who had given money to strangers on the street, and now he lay mortally wounded inside the club he loved. Doctors rushed him to the hospital, and word spread quickly through Nashville's music community. Within hours, friends and celebrities began arriving at the hospital. One of the first ones was country music superstar Tanya Tucker. Tanya Tucker sat beside Skull's bed and sang gospel hymns as he drifted in and out of consciousness. Witnesses later recalled the emotional scene as friends gathered around the dying nightclub owner. The following day, David Schulman died. He was 80 years old, and Nashville mourned. The murder investigation quickly became one of Tennessee's highest profile cases. Even Willie Nelson became involved. So determined to catch the killers, he appeared on America's Most Wanted, urging viewers to come forward with information. For 3 years, investigators chased leads. Finally, authorities identified 2 drifters connected to the scene, James Kevi and Jason Pence. Pence had previously worked for Skull and knew exactly where the club owner carried his money. According to investigators, the men targeted Skull for robbery. The robbery escalated into murder. In 2001, both men were charged. Kevi ultimately received a life sentence for the killing. Pence pleaded guilty to facilitating the murder and received a prison sentence for 15 to 25 years. And justice, at least legally, had been served. But Printer's Alley would never be the same. The Rainbow Room closed down after Skull's death. For years it sat empty. Floods damaged the building. Fire caused additional destruction. Dust collected on the stage where country music legends had performed years earlier. Many wondered if the famous club would ever reopen. And finally, After 17 years, Skull's Rainbow Room reopened in 2015. The historic stage remained. Memorabilia honoring Skull returned to the walls. New generations discovered the history of the club. But some believe Skull never left. For nearly 50 years, Skull's life revolved around Printer's Alley. He walked its brick pathways every morning in his beloved poodles. He greeted tourists and musicians alike. He spent countless hours inside that Rainbow Room, entertaining guests and building the reputation that made him a legend in Nashville. So perhaps it's no surprise that many believe his spirit still roams the alley today. Those who work in the area often claim that Skull's ghost can occasionally be seen wandering through Printer's Alley late at night. Witnesses describe seeing the apparition of an elderly man moving along the alleyway before seemingly disappearing into the walls of one of the historic buildings. Others have reported catching fleeting glimpses of a man standing near the entrance of Skull's Rainbow Room, only to have him vanish moments later. Many paranormal enthusiasts believe Skull's spirit remains attached to the basement level of the Southern Turf Building, where his beloved Rainbow Room continues to operate today. Staff members arriving before opening have reported hearing conversations coming from empty rooms. Some have described entering the building early in the morning and hearing what sounded like multiple people talking, chairs moving, or footsteps echoing through the club. Assuming someone had broken in, they search the premises only to discover they were completely alone. Others have experienced what they describe as intelligent interactions. Several workers have claimed that when they greet the unseen presence while opening the bar, they occasionally receive what sounds like a whispered response. While these experiences are impossible to verify, the stories have become a common part of life inside that historic club. And the activity isn't limited to voices. Objects have reportedly moved without explanation. One account tells of a kitchen worker preparing food when a knife suddenly flew from his hands and landed several feet away. Witnesses said the knife didn't simply slip. Instead, it appeared as though something had struck his arm from behind. The startled worker immediately looked around, expecting to find someone standing there, but there was no one around him. Other employees reported feeling unseen hands brushing against their shoulders, hearing footsteps in empty hallways, and noticing shadows moving through rooms that they should be vacant. There's also cold spots randomly throughout the building, especially on some of the bar stools. Maybe a skull wants to take a load off. Perhaps the strangest story involves visitors taking photographs at the entrance to Skull's Rainbow Room. According to a local ghost tour guide, several people have captured unusual images near the doorway over the years. One frequently repeated story involves a father taking a photograph of his young daughter standing outside the entrance. When he reviewed the image moments later, he discovered what appeared to be the face of an older man peering upward beside the child. No one matching the figure had been standing there when the photograph was taken. And skeptics, of course, point out that old buildings are full of strange sounds, shadows, and maybe some kind of illusions with light. Printer's Alley itself is more than a century old and has accumulated countless stories over the decades. But believers aren't so sure. After all, if anyone had a reason to stick around and stay behind, it would be David Skull Schulman. Printer's Alley wasn't just where he worked. It was his kingdom. It was his home. It was a place where he found success, friendship, heartbreak, and ultimately his tragic end. Even today, as music drifts through the alley and neon signs illuminate the historic brick walls, some people swear they occasionally catch sight of a familiar figure in bib overalls strolling through the darkness. If that figure happens to be carrying a poodle on a rhinestone leash, they say you've just encountered the ghost of the mayors of Printer's Alley. And if you want to learn more about the haunted history of Nashville, check out my book, Southern Ghost Stories, Downtown Nashville. Lots of history in Nashville. I actually have 4 books on Nashville if you really want to take a deep dive. I have Southern Ghost Stories, I have Downtown Nashville, South Nashville, West Nashville, and Opryland. Still kicking around north and east, but there's so much stuff in Nashville. I've got 4 books just on Nashville alone. So they're available on Kindle. You can find them at Amazon. They're on Kindle, Kindle Unlimited. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can actually read the books for free. So I got a question for you guys yet. Have you guys been to Monster City Madhouse? MonsterCityMadhouse.com. Their new shirt. It's a whole lot of fun. If you're a fan of Tombstone, the old Kurt Russell movie, this is kind of a takeoff on that. It's called Gravestone. features a mashup of Tombstone and the Universal Monsters. The Monster City Madhouse exclusive t-shirt is made from a comfortable 60/40 polyester cotton blend with quotes like "I'm your Huckleberry" and "Hell's coming with me." You'll be ready to unleash monster justice. So use promo code SAVE10 to get 10% off your order. That's right, at monstercitymadhouse.com. Type in promo code SAVE10. Save 10%. So make sure you guys are following us on Southern Ghost Stories on Facebook and Instagram. And send me some questions for a future Q&A episode. It's coming. I've been teasing it for a while, but I promise you guys it'll be here soon. Also, please leave a review for the show. If you guys enjoy what we're talking about and you enjoy listening, leave a review, subscribe, share it with a friend. Thank you for listening to Southern Ghost Stories. I'm Alan Searcy, the American Haunted Historian, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. Monster City Madhouse, a year-round online store full of Halloween and classic horror shirts, with an emphasis on the vintage look. Use code SAVE10 for 10% off your order. MonsterCityMadhouse.com. Free shipping and financing is available.